Hi, welcome to the bathtub, where when you hear this sound effect,
Every house again, again.
You rang, my lord.
and then it's followed by this other sound effect, then you know it's time for one of our basically two different theme shows, two for the price of one theme shows. It's the All Bathtub Hall of Fame, with it's merging with another series we started called "You Rang, My Lord," which is where I'm reading through all the Jeeves and Wooster books because I just to cheer myself up because the world's falling apart, and they're a great way to cheer yourself up. So we have All Bathtub Hall of Fame, and we've decided, that while we're reading through these, there's Dodo. She's not really happy with this. I put this thing in here. I thought she was going to hide in her cage, but she's not going to do that because I put this whiteboard up. I haven't done my show for a while because for a bunch of reasons. One, my computer broke down. I had to buy this laptop, which looks 10 times better, I guess. But I mean, it's a mixed blessing because you see me better, and then it's better. It's a better picture. So anyway, I got that, and I got the laptop working, and I didn't have the whiteboard. A lot of people think we don't put any effort into this show every week or so, and we don't. We put no effort into it at all. We put almost nothing at all, and as little as possible. But I do carry this goddamn whiteboard all the way up from the garage whenever I have to do the All Bathtub Hall of Fame or do something that needs the whiteboard. Because you guys have been spoiled for the pleasures of the whiteboard. And then Lucy was using it for her art show, and so I just got it back. And that's where that's the behind the scenes story of the bathtub, why we haven't been doing it. And we want to do two. We're going to do two back-to-back All Bathtub Hall of Fames. And just because to celebrate our first All Bathtub Hall of Fame for the new year, 2022. Excuse me. The Pismo Beach Prop Department came up with this beauty. Isn't that gorgeous? This is the award. We used to just give it rinky-dink. You could only look at our rinky-dink plastic trophy. But now you can look at the rinky-dink plastic trophy with one of Dodo's bathtubs taped on with packing tape. Isn't that beautiful? Pismo Beach Prop Department stayed home all Christmas. They stayed home because no one invited them to their house. But they stayed home all Christmas, all New Year's, and they put this thing together. And I think it was worth all the hard work they put into it. So whenever someone wins this award, it's kind of a lifetime achievement honor. We don't send it to them. Most of them are dead anyway, but we even if they're alive, we don't send it to them, and that's because it's the only one we got. So this is the award. It's going to P.G. Wodehouse. I think it's pronounced Wodehouse. If I'm wrong, please don't tell me, but I'm pretty sure it's pronounced different than the way it looks. And it's pronounced Wodehouse. And he is, as far as I'm concerned, somebody he deserves an All Bathtub Hall of Fame because you can't really have a bad bathtub with Wodehouse. Also, there's a number of reasons he's perfect with the bathtub. But when you get into these great Jeeves books, the best of them are really probably, there's some very good Jeeves novels, but the best are stories that are about 20 pages, and they're perfect for a good hot bath. By the time you're finished, it just fits right into the bathtub time. So I mean, we're reading. I think that's the only most important part I had to talk about. But now I'm just going to say what we've been doing is I've been reading through them in order of publication. Cheers. Happy Manhattan a day. And I've been reading in order of publication, which means I started with I've talked about Wodehouse before in the Jeeves books. I started with My Man Jeeves, which is the first of his collections, before he kind of knew what he was doing with the Jeeves books. So one of the things I learned is I enjoy this is free on Amazon. It's like a free Kindle book, and it's funny. The first 4 stories are hilarious. They're great Jeeves stories, and there's 4 of the best. But at the same time, he hadn't quite figured out what he's doing yet. So there's these other stories that don't fit. And one of the things I've learned from reading them sequentially. I'm doing this so you don't have to do it, by the way. I'm reading the Jeeves books in sequence so you don't have to. I'm going to tell you which ones to read. Is that you can't go wrong. You'll enjoy this book, but you don't really need it, okay? Because all the stories are reprinted and rewritten in a later volume. So that's useful to know. The second book was The Inimitable Jeeves. And this is the first book where he kind of has decided this is going to be a series character. And I don't remember what year this came out. It came out in like 1924. I don't know. It's probably this. Anyway, 1924 is what it says here. And these are good. These are not the best Jeeves stories. They're funny. The not as good Jeeves stories are just hilarious. But the great Jeeves stories are just impeccably hilarious. This is good, and I enjoyed this one. But what I really recommend, I think I said this last time, is starting with Carry On Jeeves. This is the third volume in the series, but basically it includes all the stories from My Man Jeeves, and then it has a bunch of new stories, and then it's rewritten other stories to turn them into Jeeves stories. And this is one of the funniest books I've ever read. I'm going to read just a short passage from it. I know I talked about some of this before, so if I actually read this passage once before, it's just because I'm losing my mind. This is a story called Fixing It for Freddy. And it's basically, Bertie's always trying to help his friends. And they're all twits, they're all idiots. And he's a total idiot, but he wants to do well. He means to do well. And he sees this, he's always trying to fix up his friends with their girlfriends, with women they're in love with. There's a couple of his friends, I think Bingo is constantly falling in love with waitresses and stuff like that. And he's trying to help this guy named Freddie, and he helps Freddie by he decides the girl that Freddie likes. He sees her with a little kid, and he thinks it's her brother. So he kidnaps the kid and designs that Freddie should take the kid back and save the kid and get in with this girl. But that turns out the kid has nothing to do with it. No one knows who the kid is. He's stuck with this little kid who's a total pain in the ass. And there's a funny little piece of dialogue here where Freddie says, "I'm pissing off. I'm not dealing with this child, this annoying child you brought home." And Bertie says to him, "Freddie, you've got to stand by me. You must. Do you realize that this child has to be undressed and bathed and dressed again? You wouldn't leave me to do all that single-handed. Jeeves can help you." "No, sir," said Jeeves, who had just rolled in with lunch. I fear, disassociate myself completely from the matter." He spoke respectfully but firmly. "I have had little or no experience with children." "Now's the time to start," I urged. "No, sir, I am sorry to say that I cannot involve myself in any way." "Then you must stand by me, Freddie." "I won't." "You must. Reflect, old man. We have been pals for years. Your mother likes me." "No, she doesn't." "Well, anyway, we were at school together, and you owe me a tenner." Anyway, the stuff just cracks, just pops along, man. The dialogue particularly is very funny. And whenever Jeeves comes into a room and leaves it, he sort of commands the scene with almost 2 or 3 lines of dialogue. He runs everything. And basically, he's the one who solves everybody's problems in this wholly screwed up family. So the other book I read since over the holidays and in the past week or two is I believe, what may be the first Jeeves novel. It's called Thank You, Jeeves, in this old American paperback. And I think it has a different name in England, but I don't know what it is. And this came out in the first publication date is 33. And I think it's the first of the novels, and it's really fun. I had a great time. I really enjoyed it. It has one little problem, which is that Jeeves isn't in it as much, because Jeeves basically he resigns from Bertie's employment in the very first chapter because Bertie decides he wants to learn how to play something called the banjolele. I don't know. It's like a mix of a ukulele and a banjo, and everybody thinks he sounds great. And Jeeves says, "If you're going to keep playing that, I got to leave. I cannot bear to listen to it." So Jeeves is gone, and he kind of shows up every once in a while. And this is kind of one of these things where Bertie goes off to the country, and it's another one where he's trying to help a friend meet a girl and save his estate or something. And it's just one comic scene after another. There's some hilarious stuff with the cops, and the politically incorrect part, which may upset some people, is at one point there's some Negro minstrels. There's a band who comes through town who plays music, and they call them, politely, I would say, Negro minstrels. And there's a joke where 2 or 3 of the people in the book have to do blackface because they're trying to pretend they're these minstrels to get off the boat. Bertie gets kidnapped by a guy who wants him to marry his daughter and stuff. Anyway, that part it's may bother some people, but parts of it are very funny because there's 2 or 3 of these guys running around who just don't know what they're doing, and they've got this shoe polish all over their faces. And there's a drunk. Bertie gets a replacement for Jeeves, who's like never in the book except when he's drunk and pounding on the doors and shouting at people. And he's a complete psychopath. Anyway, it's very funny. It's a really funny book. It's not the best of the novels. It goes on a little bit. It kind of wanders a little bit. And he does write some great novels. I haven't read them in a long time, but now that I'm reading them in sequence, the next two are Right Ho Jeeves. I remember liking this. And The Code of the Woosters, which is sometime in the 30s. I've read this a couple times. He writes much better Jeeves and Bertie novels, is all I'm trying to say. But Thank You, Jeeves was really worth reading, especially if you want to read them in sequence. Last thing I was going to say, just for a minute, is one of my favorite essayists is Orwell. He's probably my favorite literary essayist, and he was definitely Orwell was a bather. He wasn't a super serious critic. He was a bather. He read books for pleasure. He had lots of loves to read, and he was one of the few British critics and political writers who came to the defense of Wodehouse when Wodehouse was captured by the Nazis somewhere in France. And I don't remember the exact story, but he did some radio broadcasts for them. He didn't support Nazism or denigrate England, but he did these kind of comic broadcasts because he was very popular with some of the officers, I guess. Anyway, he was very much hated. And Orwell wrote this wonderful essay called In Defense of P.G. Wodehouse, in which he says a few things I don't always agree with, but he has a lovely little paragraph. I'll just read it really quickly, describing Bertie and Jeeves. Bertie, a sluggish Don Quixote, has no wish to tilt at windmills, but he would hardly think of refusing to do so when honor calls. Most of the people whom Wodehouse intends as sympathetic characters are parasites. It's true, they're all parasites. And some of them are plain imbeciles. It's true, too. But very few of them could be described as immoral. The most immoral, or rather unmoral, of Wodehouse's characters is Jeeves, who acts as a foil to Bertie Wooster's comparative high-mindedness and perhaps symbolizes the widespread English belief that intelligence and unscrupulousness are much the same thing. Has this image of Middle England's opinions of life. How closely Wodehouse sticks to conventional morality can be seen from the fact that nowhere in his books is there anything in the nature of a sex joke. I don't remember any sex jokes anywhere in Wodehouse. This is an enormous sacrifice for a farcical writer to make. Anyway, I thought almost any paragraph out of Orwell is going to bring you some interesting ideas. And there's like 5 or 6 very interesting points about Bertie and Jeeves in the Wodehouse books. Okay, that's the happy Lifetime Achievement Award to P.G. Wodehouse. I'm sure he's been waiting absolutely breathlessly for this award, and I'll let him look at it one last time. His family can look at this. Looks pretty cool. And we're going to have another one of these in a minute because we're going to give 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards to 2 different lucky guys and or gals. Okay? Okay, happy bathing. Bye.